My name's Carol Jay. I'm currently the Secretary of Transition Exmouth and one of the committee who founded Friends of the River Ex. There we are. I moved to Exmouth 20 years ago. I actually grew up in the Midlands and I just love living by the sea. Even now, every time I go down and swim in the sea, I just think, oh, I live here. I feel so lucky.
Tell us a bit about Transition Exmouth. When did you start and why Transition Exmouth?
Okay, so Transition Exmouth started in the 1990s. The transition movement is now worldwide. It actually began in Totnes, just down the road. The transition movement exists to help us transition, help us change to a future which is not reliant on fossil fuels.
Can you tell us a bit about your main objectives?
The main objective of the transition group is to work with other community groups to promote and enable different ways that we can live a more sustainable lifestyle. That can be anything from holding networking meetings where people exchange ideas. We have a seat on the Town Council's Climate and Ecological Emergency Committee, so we help them bring forward projects.
Can you share with us some of the actions and projects?
One of the great things about being a transition group is that it enables us to apply for funding which is specifically for transition groups, and we've been pretty successful at getting that. That helped us set up the Library of Things up at Littleham, where people, instead of owning things, can just have a share in the Library of Things. So if you need tools or camping equipment or disabled equipment because of relatives visiting, you can go and borrow it, and then it's available for anybody to use. That's an amazing project, and it's next door to the Repair Cafe. You can take things there and have them repaired rather than throwing them away. We have 2 e-cargo bikes which are available for anybody to borrow. We already know of 2 other cargo bikes which have been bought in town by people who tried ours out and have now moved to the e-cargo bike rather than a second car, so that feels like a success. We've been involved with the Mushroom Food Network project, which is all about reducing food waste and making food available to people, for example, through food banks. That's now a whole network that we were involved with founding. One of the most recent ones is, you all seen the t-shirt? Friends of the River Ex is a really exciting project because it's the first transition partnership project. The Transition UK group got funding for projects to bid for, with several transition groups working together on something. And Transition Exmouth worked with Transition Exeter and Sustainable Tiverton because we're all on the River Ex, and so we have a shared concern about our river. Nobody thinks there ought to be more sewage in the river, do they? Nobody thinks the beach ought to have more litter on it. It's something that the whole community can get behind. Last week we had the Festival of the Ex on World Rivers Day. We had people involved from primary school children, did artwork and wrote poems. The Yarn Bombers knitted and sewed and crocheted us an amazing sea scene. We had 3 choirs plus the Woodbury Whalers singing songs and doing a singing and listening walk from Exeter all the way to Exmouth, with pauses along the way. A number of different people who came together to say we want the river to be protected, and through that we worked with groups that you'd expect to be ecological, such as Tide Lines, whose whole remit is looking after the coastline. Perhaps the key project for a number of years has been a desire to build an eco-hub in Exmouth. Last year we had a joint project with Exmouth Town Council to take over the former toilet blocks by the duck pond by Imperial Rec, and turn that into an eco hub. We got as far as getting a business plan together. Unfortunately, it got turned down at the last hurdle by East Devon District Council. But we've recently had the amazing news that Nikki Nichols, who is the chair of Transition Exmouth, has now got a job working at Sideshore as their community and eco lead. And she's actually going to have one of those huts over at Sideshore available for community work and for eco work. So we're really looking forward to working with her and building that space, because of course it's marvellous, it's so accessible and so open and wonderful that everyone will come in. I really think great things are going to start happening there.
Where do you think there is space for improvement from whether the government or the local authorities?
On a governmental level, it's very disappointing that the targets are being softened. We're looking at the International Panel for Climate Change now saying that we're going to have a lot of difficulty keeping under that 1.5 degrees. I know 1.5 degrees doesn't sound like a lot, it's the difference between a warm day and a very warm day, but the way to look at it is this is the temperature of our planet. If you had a baby with a temperature 1.5 degrees above normal, that child would be running a pretty serious fever and you'd be really worried. And I think at all levels of government, we need to recognise that our planet is approaching that fever point. We need to be worried. Every decision that's made needs to be made with a view to the ultimate health of the planet and everyone and everything that lives here.
Personal message or an appeal toward Exmouth residents on this issue?
Be aware of everything that you do, of all the choices that you make. Be aware that we live in an extraordinary time, in an extraordinary place. We are the last generation who are going to be able to turn things around for so many species. At the moment, we still have starlings. We have murmurations of starlings across the reed beds. Those starlings are now on the red list. At the moment, we still have the salmon running up the River Exe, as they've done from time immemorial. They're almost the last ones. And once they're gone, they're gone. We are in a climate and ecological emergency, and we still have time. If we act now, we can hand all these creatures, all this space, all this fresh, clean air onto future generations. It is possible, and no one of us is going to be able to do everything. If we have a message about sustainable use of resources on our planet, we have to apply that same thinking to ourselves. We can't just keep mining and mining and mining and pouring out energy. We have to look after ourselves, look after our communities, nurture ourselves and keep things in balance. And part of that is deciding, well, what little thing can I do? What little step can I take today? And trusting that everybody else will also take steps.